Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Wednesday, the 14th of June. I'm Aidan Macdonald and today I'm joined by Ryan McGinlay. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. How are you doing? You all good?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Obviously, plenty to speak about the I don't want to call it a saga, but the Celtic manager kind of is a bit of a saga, I suppose. At this point, it continues on. Obviously, there's been more links and reports about Brendan Rodgers, which we'll come on to. But before we get into that, if any wee bit of housekeeping, anybody that's interested, at the bottom of your screen, there's the link to subscribe to the Celtic Way website, support top quality journalism for the club you love. There's obviously features and people like Tony, Ryan, tactical pieces. There's some scouting pieces will be coming over the summer as well in the transfer window, which is always exciting. So the link to that is www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Get yourself involved in that if you haven't already. Now, as people can probably see from the title of this video, Brendan Rodgers on the brink of a spectacular return. The reports seem to be pointing that way, Ryan. It looks like that he is going to be set to become the Celtic manager, assuming there's no sort of last minute hitches. There's obviously going to be a few reports we'll discuss in this. The first one we'll go into will be the one that was in the Sun yesterday. I'd imagine most people will have seen that. They were basically saying exactly that he looks set to clinch a return to Celtic. What did you kind of make of that, Ryan, when you first had a chance to look at it?
Yeah, I'm just glad that we're kind of moving towards the end of this sort of saga, as we call it. I wouldn't really call it a saga because like Eddie Howe went on a lot longer than this. It seems as if we are going to get a good sort of ending at the end of this as well, which is brilliant. Yeah, I think when you look at it, you look at the names that have been linked for the job. Rogers has the best name. It's also the safest name out of everybody linked. It's a guy that we know has done a good job in the past. The only reason why there's any sort of animosity about Brendan Rodgers coming back is because of the way he left. And the way he left was because he was successful at the football club in the first instance. So I think he's an appointment that we all know about. We all know he's an elite level manager. We know he can get a tune out of players. This squad hasn't needed anybody else to get a tune out of because the manager previous has done such a good job with them. But I believe that Brendan Rodgers could take us to the next level if and when he's announced as Celtic manager. I'm really excited for this. I feel like the past couple of days, everyone or most people are sort of mellowing to the idea of Brendan Rodgers coming back. I'm seeing a lot of funny stuff online. People sort of getting used to the fact that Brendan Rodgers could be a manager again. So yeah, I think when it is announced, if and when it's announced, I think the internet will be a pretty happy place with regards to Celtic.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we've just kind of been discussing the briefing over the last couple of weeks that we understand concerns obviously people have with Brendan Rodgers. The way he left the last time, that is for some people they may not ever be able to get over that, which is fair enough. His recruitment, something else that's also been highlighted, whether or not that was all to do with him or the club, or it was a bit of both, probably remains to be seen. And maybe that'll become clear if he does come back to the job and the transfer windows aren't quite as strong as they were under Ange, for example. But yeah, I think it's probably the best appointment Celtic could make in terms of the likely options. I know there's also people like Graham Potter, etc. out there, but I don't think Celtic ever really had a chance of attracting someone like that, in my opinion. So from the names that had been linked, that there was actually a chance of getting, I thought Brendan Rodgers was probably the best in terms of a coaching point of view, and it looks like hopefully that will be done relatively soon. Obviously, just in terms of continuing the reports, Stephen McGowan from the Scottish Daily Mail last night, he'd said that after the discussions that had taken place with Chris Mackay, Michael Nicholson, and conversations Dermot Desmond had also had with Brendan Rodgers, that sort of the key thing that was put forward was making Celtic a force again in Europe. Did that make you quite excited when you heard that, Ryan? Obviously, Rodgers' last Champions League campaign, he done well 2 out of the 3 times to qualify. When they got in the group stages, it was a bit mixed. Now, he does hold at the moment Celtic's only, I think, group stage victory for the last 10 years or whatever it is, with the 3-0 victory over Anderlecht. There was some decent enough performances against Man City, even if they did dip a wee bit for the rest of that campaign. But obviously, the fans want Celtic to be in there competing at the highest level, and hopefully they'll be able to do that. It's definitely reassuring that sounds like that's going to be his priority if he comes back in.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to the sort of 10:30 exclusive drops from all the publications, because you know what it's like being a Celtic supporter. You see WhatsApp rumours going about all the time about what a manager has been maybe promised, about what players are coming in. And the two did seem to link up, and they were talking about, there was stuff I was hearing about the manager was going to get back to Europe with big funds, with a changing of infrastructure, and it seemed as if those two stories linked up. It was good to see that Stephen McGowan was sort of relaying those stories that were going about. It's really reassuring to hear that the board seem all in on this. It seems as if they've let bygones be bygones with regards to his departure the last time, and now they're ready to get back. Everybody's in the same boat, and they're all just striving for Celtic to be in a really good place. It's not as if they're not in a good place to begin with, but to get us to that even higher level, to make sure that we're competing in Europe rather than just making up the numbers. That's what I want. I want Celtic to be the bogey team that teams don't want in pot four when you're coming in the Champions League. You want, obviously with the Swiss League system next season, that'll be interesting as well. But right now, you want to be that pot four team that teams dread coming to Celtic Park to face, because they know they're going to be in a game for 90 minutes. And I feel like if Brendan Rodgers gets backed the way that he probably should have been backed the first time, then I think we will get to that level. But yeah, really exciting times, and I just hope all of these things, because you hear all these things, but you just hope that they transpire once the man gets through the door. But I suppose he'll be under certain assurances that he will be getting back this time, otherwise he wouldn't have been making his way back here. He's in a really sort of strong position that he's got that Premier League experience. He could have sat and waited for a Premier League job for somebody getting sacked, but it seems as if he's going to come back to Celtic with the assurances that he will be properly backed this time around.
Yeah, I've got no doubt that if he's coming back, he knows that for some people it's going to be very hard to win them over. So I don't think he would be returning to Celtic if he wasn't getting more back than they did last time, or at the very least decent money to spend on players, because he knows there is going to be some fans that are probably never really going to properly accept him back, no matter how well he does. Even though I think a lot of fans, if he does become successful, again, wins a lot of trophies, does well in Europe, however that sort of transpires, if he beats Rangers at Ibrox in the first derby of next season, I get the feeling that a lot of fans will probably have forgot his previous transgressions. But yeah, it's one of those ones. It will be interesting to see how it works out. We would hope that Celtic will be getting that over the line relatively soon, over the next couple of days, and I'd imagine there'll be announcements about backroom staff. Obviously, when Rodgers was confirmed the last time, it seemed to come quite quickly that Chris Davis was joining. Other coaches were joining, physios, all that sort of stuff. Whether or not things will move as quickly this time in terms of backroom staff, we don't know. There is the John Kennedy factor. We don't really know what's happening with him. It is a bit weird that if the reports that were coming out last week were to believe that he did want to go to Spurs, I kind of just assumed Celtic would have let him go, really. Him and Gavin Strachan, etc. Just because it's not like a player, it's you don't really want somebody in the management role or in the backroom staff that's been keen to leave, really, particularly when you're getting a new manager in or somebody that's coming back to the club. So, yeah, whether or not Chris Davis would potentially come back, Scott Brown, obviously I know you and Tony discussed that yesterday, Ryan. Cole Touré, I've seen another name potentially floated, obviously out of management after a bit of an unsuccessful spell at Wigan, but he was at Celtic previously as a player, then a coach, and then he was at Leicester for a number of years with Brendan Rodgers as well. So, or maybe even a fresh name that we've not even heard of before. That there's been plenty of links to guys. So that'll be another thing I'd imagine after hopefully Rodgers is confirmed. The next thing people have their eyes on is what's happening with the backroom stuff. But yeah, it's been interesting anyway, Ryan. And obviously, I know you'll probably have some comments you'll be wanting to fire up here to see what people are saying.
Yep.
But
yeah. That's what I think. I think that's the difference. I think he's been totally assured that he's getting back to the hilt with regards to transfers this time around. I think it's quite interesting as well, the fact that this is Nicholson's first big test. This appointment. This is his first appointment since coming in as the Celtic chief executive. Because you remember it was Don Mackay that was in at the time when Postecoglou got announced. So this is his first big appointment, and if he can bring somebody back that brought so much success to the club like Brendan Rodgers, and I think that'll get the supporters even more on his side, more than before. And I think Nicholson has got a pretty good sort of rapport with the Celtic fans at this point in time, with the signings that he's made, with the success that his sort of acquisitions have brought to the club. So if you can get Brendan Rodgers in, and Brendan Rodgers is singing from the same sheet as the board, then what's not to like? I mean, Red Scotland as well saying Brendan's going to tear this league up. I mean, that's what we expect from Brendan Rodgers. He done that the last time he was at the club. So who's to say that under even more backing from the board and even more, maybe more of his transfer targets that are getting brought in, who's to say that won't happen again? He's an elite operator, and you could see that coming to fruition again, I would say, Aidan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Rodgers is undoubtedly a phenomenal coach. You know, if somebody had his CV and their name wasn't Brendan Rodgers, I think every Celtic wouldn't be getting him, to be honest. The fact that he's got that link with the club is probably why it looks like he is going to come back. He's got a clear sort of strategy of developing players that a lot of the teams he's went to, whether you go through Liverpool when it was Raheem Sterling, or, you know, Celtic, Callum McGregor, James Forrest, you know, Scott Brown, even really revitalised his career, didn't he? Then at Leicester, you know, he was sort of getting players back in form, such as Jamie Vardy, etc. So there's plenty of positives in terms of his coaching ability, and I've got no doubt that he'll put Celtic in a really strong position to hopefully come in and do well domestically, do well in Europe next season. He's also, I know we discussed it yesterday, Ryan, just off air, but he is probably inheriting a bit of a stronger squad than he did last time, and it's probably a stronger squad than he left as well. You know, it's a pretty well-oiled machine. Obviously, players could move on in the summer. That you kind of need to wait and see in that. But if Celtic are able to hold on to all their key players, then there will be a few individuals they want to bring in certain positions. You know, maybe goalkeeper or centre half potentially. But there already is a lot of important cogs in the machine that he'll hopefully be able to improve them even more. You know, I don't want to be discussing Ange too much because he's also moved on, but he did get a really good tune out of a lot of these players, and hopefully Rodgers will be able to continue that, and if not, improve them even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's not to say that these players will improve again under Brendan Rodgers? It's very, very possible. You just wonder who the sort of signings that he would bring in, because he wouldn't be bringing in signings to make up the numbers. He'd be bringing people in specifically to improve the first team. I think that's where Celtic need to go with regards to European signings. We need to bring in 4 or 5 players that are going to come in instantly, make their mark in the first team, and make a difference in Europe, because it's these players that are match winners in Europe. You need, in my opinion, you need a goalkeeper that's going to make the big saves in the big moments to keep us in ties, because we will be coming up against teams that are better than us next season in the Champions League. If we can bring in a goalkeeper that's maybe good with his feet, although that might not be as important under Brendan Rodgers. It was maybe more important under Postecoglou, but he did get a tune out of Joe Hart. But if he can get a young goalkeeper that can make those big saves in the big moments, then that would be ideal. Same for left back. I think left back's a place that could possibly be improved. I know Brendan Rodgers will have a couple of ideas for who will play in that sort of role, because Greg Taylor wasn't at the club when Brendan Rodgers was there last time. He was a 2019 signing, so he'll gauge what's going on with regards to those positions, and then any other position that he might see needs improved. He'll obviously had the assurances from the board that he will get back to improve in these positions. I just see, I've started some comments again. It's just got a couple of people talking about the Leeds, and I suppose that's a good segue into the next part. Leeds not supposed to be in for Brendan Rodgers. The Athletic are reporting that he turned Leeds down. And then there's more comments from Jerry about Leeds. It's just the Leeds thing was sort of rebuffed this morning in the Yorkshire Evening Post. Basically, there's nothing in that story at all. The story that the Record ran at 10:30 last night, there's not really any sort of solid base to that. It looks as if the road is very clear with regards to Brendan Rodgers coming back to Celtic. We are the front runners. Barring an absolute collapse, he will be the next Celtic manager, which is really good. I don't know what you think, Aidan, but it's a really exciting prospect.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. I'm pretty happy with what looks like going to be the appointment of the new boss. I think I'd said at the start that I said last week, sorry, even that he wasn't probably my ideal choice for the candidates, but in terms of the actual managers available that Celtic have a chance of getting, whether because they want to come to the club or there's a previous link there, Celtic could take advantage of. He was far and away the main candidate and probably most outstanding candidate with his CV. Is, I know it kind of fell apart at Leicester near the end, and even though he wasn't the manager when they get relegated this season, it was Dean Smith. It was the results that he was involved in that put them down pretty much. They were damaged goods really by the time Dean Smith went in there, so you can effectively say he did get them relegated. So there is that, but the other 2 seasons at Leicester, I know the season before that wasn't great, but 1920, 2021, they were 2 really positive campaigns for them. 2 fifth place finishes. They should have got Champions League both times. While obviously at the start they were spending money, I'm not going to dispute that. I know near the end, for various reasons, he wasn't really getting to spend that much. But at that time they were, but it was nowhere near what the teams round about them would have been spending. Man City's, Liverpool's, Man United's, etc., Chelsea's. So he done well to be up there competing and got some decent results against these teams. Then obviously winning the FA Cup at the time they beat Chelsea, who went on to win the Champions League a week later or 2 weeks after that. So in my opinion, he is a top manager, and I'm well aware, obviously, of the baggage that comes with Brendan Rodgers, and we know he probably wouldn't be here that long, maybe 2-3 seasons, and Celtic would have to, be aware of that in terms of this appointment, whether that's through giving him a 3 or 4 year deal, so there's a security, but also maybe doing a bit of succession planning. I know you'd mentioned previously, Ryan, that could be a reason they're looking at potentially Scott Brown as an assistant, as somebody who would then take it on. But whether that was the case, or they had a clear aim that 2 seasons' time we're going to have somebody else we go after, or there's going to be another list of candidates, there'll have to be sort of long-term planning, because it is probably going to be a relatively short-term appointment, I would imagine. But I'm going to hope it will be a successful short-term appointment, similar domestic success to last time, and also improving in Europe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the majority of our managerial appointments from here on in are going to be shorter term, because that's just the landscape of where Celtic find themselves with regards to the league that they play in, and obviously their positioning in the Champions League. There's only going to be 6, if not 8 games a season in the Champions League, unless we do really, really well and get to the knockout stages, which would be great. But at the moment, that's kind of pie in the sky stuff. I would say we need to be improving our form before we think about qualifying out of a group or out of a group stage. But yeah, I think if a manager isn't getting linked with moves down south, then in my opinion, he's not doing as good a job as what he could be doing, because Celtic is a great sort of opportunity to springboard yourself down south. You've seen that with Postecoglou, and I was listening to another sort of podcast there, and they were saying that Postecoglou's got to do a good job down south, because he's got to be projecting the Scottish game and showing that he can do a good job up north and then down south. So I'm hoping that with Rodgers, he can come up and do a good job for however long that is, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, or whatever. If he wants to stay long term, then so be it, as long as he brings success with him. But if he does 3 years of a good job and then moves down south, it's good, as long as we've got succession planning in the long term. I don't know if that person will be Scott Brown. I don't know if we'd maybe go for another experienced manager down the line. But as long as we've got somebody really experienced and can do the job and can win us football matches in right now, then I'll be quite happy, and we can focus on long-term planning when we get to that point.
Exactly. I mean, I think football fans are fickle in general. If Rodgers comes in, he starts well, winning trophies, beating Rangers, and you can see an improvement in Europe. Well, that's even just winning a couple of games and getting Europa League round of 32 or Europa League round of 16, or actually progressing to the knockout stages. Then I'd imagine fans will kind of quickly get on side. But yeah, it is, in terms of coaching ability and a person with that CV and with the likely options, it is probably the best Celtic could do. And yeah, the club just need to be aware that he is likely to probably not be here that long. But as you point out, any manager really, if it was Knutson that came in, for example, had 2 good seasons after being at Bodo Glimt, then he'd probably be getting linked to someone who's at Ange did before he moved on. As long as Celtic have a succession plan in place, are looking at the long term, hopefully they are in a sort of better place now in terms of recruitment, with Mark Wall being there. Obviously, if the recruitment isn't great over the summer, then it will become apparent that obviously a lot of that was being driven by Ange. But it does seem to be more of a strategy in place from that point of view. So fingers crossed that will be the case this summer. But yeah, it is an exciting time, and I'm just glad that even though I called it a saga earlier, it's felt probably a lot longer in my head than it actually has been. Ange only left last Tuesday, so if Celtic can wrap this up by the end of the week, I'll be pretty happy with how quickly it's got done.
Yeah, me too. I'll be delighted if that's the case. It's obviously a bit longer because you and I write about Celtic, so it seems as if every day is sort of a saga with regards to Celtic. But if we can get it done, we can get a replacement in within a week. Then that's a lot shorter than the last time it took for us to get a manager through the door. So we are improving slowly but surely. We're getting quicker with regards to bringing a new manager in. So I think it shows you that Nicholson is doing a good job at Celtic if he can bring this sort of manager back into the fold. If he can make sure that those bridges are rebuilt, both with other members of the board, you talk about the relationship between Peter Lawwell and Brendan Rodgers sort of falling apart. If those two can get on and have a working sort of relationship, as well as with other members of the board, then I can't see why this won't be a success. I think for the fans across the city, it's a nightmare that Brendan Rodgers is coming back. I know Tony wrote about that today. They talk about how bad it was for Rangers that a manager like Brendan Rodgers is coming back into the fold. He was the one that got the allocation cut in the first place due to his performances at Ibrox. If we're bringing in somebody like that, it shows that we are taking the league serious and we're taking the Champions League serious. I think his record's there to be improved upon in Europe. Yes, it can be improved upon, but why not give him that chance and see if he can improve it with good results? If he gets properly backed, then I don't see why that can't be the case. And you look at the players that he was getting linked with and he did want at the team. If they were in the first team, I think Celtic would have got better results in Europe. You look at players like John McGinn. I'm not saying he would have been a first choice starter in the first couple of seasons he was there, but you look at John McGinn, you look at Timothy Castagne. These are two players that would have really improved Celtic that Brendan Rodgers scouted and wanted through the door. If he gets these players, you never know. That could be the difference between a draw and a win, or a lose and a draw. So maybe this time, if he does scout a player that he really wants, you go out and get that player that's going to make the difference in the long term. But like I've said before, I think I've mentioned about 3 or 4 times already, I think he'll have certain assurances that he will get what he wants this time, because he was in a position of strength. He's came back to Celtic. He's wanting to do this redemption story, and to be honest, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we've seen some more to last time. Obviously, the last transfer window Brendan Rodgers was in, it was clear at that stage that when you look back at it, he obviously was on the road out, guys getting signed in 6-month contracts. Celtic didn't want to obviously back him at all because they thought he could leave at any moment. My argument to that would be, well, they should have still been thinking about the long-term future of the club, and signing guys in 6-month contracts is never really a good idea, regardless of the managers moving on. But yeah, hopefully this time you will see maybe some more signings to Jota and Carter Vickers, rather than 7, 8, 9, 10 players that were signed like in Andrew's first season. If Celtic can hold on to a lot of their key names, that shouldn't really be needed this summer. 4 or 5 maybe really high quality players that can come in, feature on the first team, maybe at similar levels of price. I know money isn't always a guarantee of quality, but sort of similar level to Jota and Carter Vickers. Celtic have shown they're willing to spend money really a bit more now than they used to be. I know previously Rodgers did break the transfer record for Edward, but it seemed like after that it was kind of penny pinching potential, you could argue. There was a lot of players for 1-2 million. There was also expensive loans as well. We should probably add somebody like Charlie Masonda. That was quite expensive, even though it didn't really work out. Bringing Patrick Roberts back from Man City for obviously I know it was Ronnie Dyler that signed him originally, then he came back for a loan in Brendan Rodgers' second season. So things like that, I know they would have added to the transfer budget as well, particularly in terms of wages, but hopefully we'll be getting away from kind of that sort of transfer business, and it will be similar to what it's been like under Ange, because the transfer windows have been very refreshing recently. Players have been coming in pretty quickly. There's not been too many links from the media. You've kind of maybe just the day before somebody's been getting linked and then they've just signed, which has been really good. So those 4 transfer windows across the Clogway were very enjoyable. So fingers crossed it's going to be similar this summer.
Yeah, and that's the way that your transfer business should be operating. The media shouldn't know until the signing's basically done, because therefore it isn't out in in the open. There isn't rumours going about. You should be able to just conduct your business, and then Celtic announcing the signing just out of nowhere. There's no better look than that. It means that they've done their business in-house, and then they're able to just announce it, and then everybody else is playing catch up. Like you said with the signings, I do agree. 4 or 5 really high quality signings that can come in and make the first team stronger. Maybe there's a couple of areas that he could see would need improvement. Yes, he could get improvement out of certain players already at the club, but if there's scope to improve the squad with regards to making transfers, then I'm all for that. Bring them in and let's mould a team in Rodgers' image. I think it is fair to say that he is going to come for the job now. I don't think he's going to let us down this late in the day. So I mean, fingers crossed. You know what it's like. We've been stung before with this sort of thing, but yeah, it's a really exciting time now. I feel like although we had the sadness of Postecoglou leaving last week, I feel like now there's that sense of optimism again. And the fact that we've got a guy that we know has done well at the club before, that there isn't too much risk attached when it comes to the way he plays football and his winning mentality, couple that with the assurances that he'll have no doubt got from the board, then it's a really, really exciting time to be a Celtic supporter with regards to this new team coming up to next season.
Yeah, I completely agree, Ryan. Hopefully Celtic will get that clinched over the next few days, and it does look like it's going to be pretty inevitable that Brendan Rodgers will be the new manager. Now, just not long before we finish up, obviously, in slightly different news from the links to the new manager, Celtic obviously released or announced one of their new kits today on the Twitter. Ryan, I know you're always keen online to see you talking about various strips and all that, etc. What are your thoughts on it?
I think I'll buy this one. That's what I'm going to say. First of all, I think this is an absolute cracker. I've been desperate for us to get a top like this for years. I always like any black kit that Celtic bring out. Ever since Black Magic in 2003, 2004 time. Ever since that, I feel like I've had this sort of connection with the sort of black Celtic tops. I like absolutely everything about this kit. I even love the collar, and I didn't think I would, but it just looks. We're going to be playing some stylish football, hopefully under Brendan Rodgers on the pitch, and we'll be looking stylish as well in that kit away from home. I think it's an absolute screamer.
Yeah, it is nice. It had been leaked, like most these things are nowadays. It'd been leaked quite far in advance. I think even people might have been able to get their hands on it a bit earlier at one point. So yeah, it was quite funny to see that actually be confirmed as the kit. But yeah, no, it's really nice. As you said, the sort of famous black kits over the years, the Black Magic one, and even the one that under Brendan Rodgers the last time. I can't remember if it was his first or second season. It was the black with the gold as well.
It was his first season.
His first season, yeah, that was a pretty nice away strip. So, yeah, seem to be continuing on with that, and I'd imagine that'll be getting bought by various people going on holiday over the summer. Ryan, you included potentially?
Yeah, I think out of the 3 kits, I mean, I've seen the third kit be leaked as well on the Adidas website. That one's a bit of a more out there pick. Maybe get that in the sales when it comes down in price. But I think in terms of full price buys, I think the black one is going to need to be bought. I think it's so stylish, and it's modern as well, but it's got a classic. It's modern but classic in the same way. I think that's the way that they were sort of marketing it this morning on the Celtic Twitter page. It looks as if it's going to be quite a busy Celtic Twitter page over the next couple of days. Hopefully, I know it's been quiet recently, but it's beginning to pick up. You can kind of tell that something's in the offing. I'm just wondering I just wonder if they're sort of marketing this kit because they know something's coming in the next couple of days. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I definitely will be getting that kit. I'll probably be one of the first kits I get, or one of the first shirts I get without the sponsor. I don't know if you've seen the picture, the sponsorless picture. It's even nicer without the sponsor. It just looks so stylish. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one.
Yeah, without the sponsors is always quite nice. I hadn't actually seen without it for this one, but I'm sure it is
It's a
a belter when it looks like that. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for now, guys. Obviously, Tony and Ryan will be back tomorrow and Friday to, well, hopefully potentially react to Brendan Rodgers being announced or just build up to his hopeful appointment. Just before we go, a wee bit of housekeeping at the bottom. If you're interested, subscribe to the Celtic Way website, supporting top quality journalism, covering the club you love. Features from people like Tony, obviously the one Ryan mentioned earlier, and the one that's in the description of this video, talking about how maybe the other fans across the city will be feeling if Rodgers to come back. it goes through kind of his record last time, etc. Recently, there was an opinion piece from Kevin McKenna explaining why Brendan Rodgers was his key pick to come back. Over the summer, there'll be plenty of sort of scouting pieces from people like Stuart Ross. There's going to be one coming hopefully next week, looking at Odin Thiago Holm, if I've pronounced that right. Obviously Norwegian boy that Celtic have agreed a deal with. He's currently on holiday now, so it looks like that'll hopefully be done next week. And yeah, all sorts of other content, so get yourself involved in that if you haven't already. Ryan, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me as always, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.